Hi, this is a short video relating to how to change from chord to chord in first position. I'm going to use a technique called stamping. Other players might call it other things, but we're trying to stamp all of our fingers down at the same time gently and really without pressure at first. I'm going to use the primary chords from the key of G, which would be the 1 chord G, the 4 chord C, and the 5 chord D, or D7 could be used here as well. And we're going to talk about moving slowly and deliberately from chord to chord, moving all of your fingers at the same time. So if I form a G chord on the fretboard here, what a lot of beginning players will do is find one finger at a time. They'll start by putting the third finger down and then the index and then the second, which is probably completely necessary when you're just building the chord the first time. You need to find those correct notes, and I would recommend picking each note individually to make sure there's no problems. For example, you might get a dampened note where this index finger is touching the D string, and you might not hear that if you just strum the chord. So find the notes you need individually at first, check the chord, make sure you've got the sound coming out and that you're learning the proper placement and standing your fingers up on the fretboard. They're not laying down and touching other strings, but they're standing up. As you work into this stamping technique we're talking about, you are going to lift up away from the fretboard, but notice my hand is still in the shape of that G chord. And I'm going to practice touching all of the strings at the same time. So I'm not going to let one finger down first or touch the fretboard first. I'm going to stop and move very slowly until all the fingers are ready to touch together. So I'm not building anymore one finger at a time, but I'm practicing this idea of moving away just a little bit from the fretboard. And at this point, I'm not even pressing down. I'm just touching the string with the correct angle of the finger, standing the finger up. And again, maintaining a relaxed wrist here. I don't want to push too far forward or invert my wrist this way and have my thumb over the top, my thumb's on the back of the fretboard. And I have a relaxed wrist. As a matter of fact, I can play the chord and move my hand and my wrist a little bit. So, moving away, coming back. And you can practice 2 fingers at a time. Really what is effective is the highest string and the lowest string at the same time. So I can practice this technique of touching 2 and 3 together, and then my index finger follows pretty comfortably. You can also work on 1 and 2 and 1 and 3. Again, I'm practicing moving those fingers together. If I find that I'm putting one finger down first, I'm not doing the technique right, and I want to stop and I want to slow down and just practice touching whatever fingers I'm working on. If it's all 3, if it's the high G and the low G, I'm trying to touch those at the exact same time. So when I go to, let's say, the 4 chord C, I don't want to, again, find myself playing one finger at a time like this. I'm going to go from the G chord and I'm going to practice kicking my third finger up or moving it up, extending it. So it's going from a flexed, bent position to an extended position. But notice at the same time, my index finger is going from an extended position, reaching over, and flexing. So this is now the 2 C's on the B string and on the A string, and I'm practicing touching those 2 at the same time. So a great way to practice between these 2 chords is touch the outside G's on the 6th and 1st string, and then the octave Cs on the B string and the A string, so that I am working on forming the chord before I touch down. So again, if you find yourself doing this or this, you're not doing the stamping technique. You're not practicing the right movement to get to that chord efficiently and quickly. You're taking 3 times as long as moving your fingers together as one big finger. So again, I go to the G chord. Notice my 3rd finger flexes while my middle finger extends. So I'm forming the chord and I'm not letting any fingers touch until they're all ready to go. So you can actually see my fingers make the shape of the chord before it touches down. And again, I can practice just 2 notes. I can use 2 and 3, 1 and 2, but it's really effective to play the highest and lowest note for these chords. And the inside notes fill in pretty nicely because you have a finger that's sympathetically following along, like your middle finger here. So again, when I go to make the D chord, notice I'm opening my hand up a little bit and I'm stacking my 2 outside notes so that I have 1 and 2 together here with my 3rd finger. See, I'm not touching the strings right now, but look, you can see that I've formed that D chord. So it's not this or this or this, but I actually have to tell myself what is happening with my fingers. I think that if you use the words and language that you're comfortable with, for example, I'm going to flex my middle finger and reach and slightly extend my 2nd finger to touch the A and the F sharp at the same time, and then reach over with my 3rd finger. So I'm giving these little commands and muscle memory together. Now I'm extending my 3rd finger and flexing my index finger. So going between the D and the C. And you can see I'm not building one at a time here. I'm touching together. And if you can focus on just a few chords, 2 chords or 3 chords, like the primary chords of a key, the 1, the 4, and the 5, which would be the most common chords used in a song. If you can teach yourself this technique and start to use it, you can start to build your chord vocabulary with the stamping, and you can then start to grab all sorts of different chords, building this vocabulary of muscle memory. So once again, I'm touching the outside strings, and this time I'm going to add pressure, strum, I lift up, no rhythm at all. I'm not worried about rhythm at this point. There's my C chord. Here's the 5 chord, flexing the middle finger, extending the 3rd, extending the index finger and putting the 3rd right in between. Correct bass notes here. 6th string in the bass, all the fingers touching together. 5th string in the bass, and 4th string in the bass. So not this, or this, but this stamping of the chord. And again, I can practice going in between with no rhythm and not even pressing, so I don't have to fatigue my hand, and I can work on this muscle memory. So I hope that's helpful, and you put this stamping technique to practice as soon as you can. Have a great day. Thank you.